Hi, welcome to And I'm Growing Old, a series examining the work of ageing musicians. What artists do when the glory years are over has always fascinated me. Musicians in this phase of life have to strike a difficult balance. They're expected to avoid sounding tired while also sidestepping cringy attempts to sound young. It's a practically impossible tightrope. That's why it's much more compelling to me when an older band comes out with something great. Anyone can blow you away when they're young and hungry, but to do it 20 years in, that's truly impressive. Today's entry is I Know How to Die by Motorhead. Motorhead were interesting for how so many of their riffs were totally generic, and yet they still sounded utterly distinctive. A lot of their ideas could have been written by Chuck Berry or Ted Nugent, and in fact Lemmy did always insist they were a rock and roll band first and foremost.
We are Motorhead! And we play rock and roll!
So what made their rendition of generic riffs so much better than everyone else's? Well, other than being faster and harder, their three not-so-secret ingredients were Lemmy's bass, Lemmy's voice and Lemmy's lyrics. His bass was always heavily distorted, for some reason a rarity in rock and roll given that extra undertow of grunt it gives you, and as a vocalist he was like several different voices fused into one. As a shouter he was more melodic than most, as a crooner more abrasive than most. He could make himself sound like a crocodile rubbing its belly on a gravel driveway, but he more usually sang near the top of his range. Despite the leather and the mutton chops, it's a type of macho that has a streak of, dare I say it, femininity to it. As a lyricist, he was sometimes clunky, but his main thing was to mix darkness with humour. Most dark bands are arrogant. They rub your nose in constant misery while never cracking a smile, and this is meant to reflect the seriousness of the issues, but really just reflects how seriously they take themselves. But, like with his vocals, Lemmy felt no need to prove himself in his lyrics. He took the problems of the world seriously, but never himself. I Know How to Die was released in 2010, and by this point Motorhead had all their ducks in a row. They were well into their final trio phase consisting of Lemmy, Phil Campbell and Mickey D, a combination who'd been managing not to piss each other off too much since 1992. Is stability conducive to great rock and roll? Not always, but this song, while polished, rips. Anyone could have written that riff, but no one else would have made it sound that good. And then Lemmy comes in yelling this string of first thought type lyrics over the top of it. When the band coasted, you got a lot of stuff that sounded like this. But the Motorhead sausage machine had a way of turning awful into bangers. And just when you think the band's going to coast through this one on pure force of personality, this great pop chorus comes in and the whole thing just takes off. The knack for melody is often one of the first things to go when ageing songwriters start to lose it, but this is a chorus many young bands would have been proud to write. Some people don't seem to need melody from Motorhead, which is fair enough, but to me, the combination of their whole sandpaper to face, boot to arse routine, plus just the right amount of tunefulness, is unbeatable. In an interview, Lemmy expanded on the theme of the song, saying, in your 20s you think you're immortal, in your 30s you hope you're immortal, in your 40s you're just praying it doesn't hurt too much, and by the time you're 65 you're convinced it's just around the corner. The song was released on the album The World Is Yours, and became a favourite, being gigged 222 times in the next 4 years. There's a lot of other great songs on that record. I almost picked the first one, Born to Lose, which was only the second time Motorhead had ever done a song with that name. In many ways that song is kinda similar to I Know How to Die. It's mostly speeded up blues rock, but with one element that kicks it to a higher level. In this case, a riff that seems to have been stolen from Bullet in the Head. I always have to doff my cap to a good steal, and that's a great one. So in conclusion, I like to score these songs on a few different metrics. I mean, after all, how do you know if you're having any fun in life if you can't attach a number value to it? Firstly, head count. This is the percentage of the classic lineup that made it this far, in this case 33%. Filthy Animal Taylor and Fast Eddie Clarke were ancient history by this point. Next, freshness. Musically, I'd have to say close to zero, but production and performance-wise it sounds super vibrant, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Integrity, 10 out of 10. This is no cash grab reunion, their motivations remained impeccable to the very end. And finally, purity. How many outside writers and performers were needed to push this thing over the finish line? And in this case, 0. This thing is pure 200 proof Motorhead. Alright, that's your lot. Thanks for watching. Please check out the channel for more, and I'm growing old. Unless you're watching this one the very week it came out, in which case, give me half a chance. I'm only one man.